This is the planet that humans have been dreaming about for thousands of years. And the craziest part is that in the next 10-20 years, any one of us might step onto this planet. Yes, I'm talking about the planet Mars, which we also call the Red Planet. Now, you might be thinking, Earth is already so beautiful, so why do we even need to go to Mars? Well, that's the same question I asked some people too, and when I got the answer, it blew my mind. Look, there is a very scary truth that we all need to understand, and that is that Earth will not always be safe. 66 million years ago, an asteroid wiped out the entire dinosaur species in just one impact. Now, imagine if something like that happened today. The entire human civilization could end in a single moment. And that's why the world's biggest scientists and visionaries say that humans must become a multi-planetary species, meaning we need to live on more than one planet. Otherwise, our future is very risky. Now, an interesting question comes up. If we have to go to another planet, why Mars? Look, in our solar system, there are 8 planets, and most of them are either extremely hot, extremely cold, or don't even have a solid surface, like Jupiter and Saturn, which are gas giants. Now, look at Venus, our closest neighbor. The temperature there is 450 degrees Celsius, which is so hot that even lead would melt. And the atmosphere has clouds of sulfuric acid that would dissolve anything. So basically, going to Venus means instant death. Now, let's talk about Mars. It is similar to our world in many ways. A day on Mars is 24 hours and 37 minutes long, which is almost like Earth. It also has seasons, like we have here. Mars has a solid surface where we can walk and build buildings. There is also water there, in the form of ice, at the poles and underground. And the most important thing is that Mars is relatively close to us, about 225 million kilometers away on average. But now the real challenge begins, and that is reaching Mars and surviving there, which is absolutely not easy at all. Look, traveling from Earth to Mars takes a rocket about 7 to 9 months, because both planets are moving around the Sun in their own separate orbits, and we have to launch during a specific window that comes once every 26 months. This means that if a mission to Mars launches and something goes wrong, there is no immediate option to come back. You would have to stay there for months, and that is why some people also call Mars missions a one-way ticket. Now, imagine you have reached Mars, opened the spaceship door, and looked outside. The first thing you would see is a red desert spread everywhere. Mars is called the Red Planet because the soil contains iron oxide, which we also call rust, and that gives it the red colour. If you look up at the sky, it would look strange, pinkish brown, not blue like Earth. Now, the first big problem is that Mars's atmosphere is very thin. To understand how thin it is, think of this. Mars's atmosphere is only 1% of Earth's atmosphere, and the little atmosphere it does have is made of 95% carbon dioxide, which is poisonous to us. That means if you take off your spacesuit, you would lose consciousness in just 15 seconds and die within 2 minutes. So basically, on Mars, surviving even 1 minute without special equipment is impossible. Talking about temperature, the average temperature on Mars is minus 60 degrees Celsius. It is so cold that Antarctica would seem warm in comparison. And sometimes the temperature drops to minus 125 degrees Celsius, which is such extreme cold that your blood would freeze. Now, there is also the issue of radiation, which is very serious. Look, on Earth, we have a magnetic field that blocks harmful radiation coming from the sun. But Mars does not have this magnetic field, and because of that, cosmic radiation and solar radiation directly reach the surface there. Spending 1 year on Mars would expose you to as much radiation as you would get in 8 years on Earth, and this radiation greatly increases the risk of cancer. So basically, Mars is a hostile environment that will try to kill you in every possible way. Now, the question is, if Mars is so dangerous, then why do we want to go there, and how will we do it? Look, currently the most ambitious company in the world preparing to go to Mars is SpaceX, whose founder is Elon Musk. Elon Musk has clearly said that his ultimate goal is to build a self-sustaining city on Mars where 1 million people can live. Now, that sounds very crazy, but when you look at what SpaceX is building, you might feel like this dream can come true. SpaceX has built a rocket called Starship, which is the most powerful and the largest rocket ever made. This rocket can carry 100 to 150 metric tons of payload to Mars. And the most important thing is that it is fully reusable, meaning just like an airplane flies again and again, this rocket can also be used again and again, which dramatically reduces the cost. In the past, launching one rocket cost hundreds of crores, and after one use, the rocket would fall into the ocean. But SpaceX's rocket comes back and lands, and then it can be used again. Because of this technology, a Mars mission has become possible. Because before this, the cost of going to Mars was so high that no one could even imagine it. Now, the plan is that first unmanned missions will be sent, which will deliver supplies and equipment to Mars. After that, the first manned mission will go, which may include 10-20 astronauts. These first people will be brave souls who will go knowing that they may never come back. They will have to set up basic infrastructure on Mars, like installing habitat modules, setting up an oxygen generation system, installing solar panels, and building a system to extract water. Now, you're probably thinking, where will people live on Mars? Look, in the beginning, astronauts will live in prefabricated habitats that will be sent from Earth. These will basically be large, pressurized pods with a controlled environment inside, temperature regulation, oxygen supply, and radiation protection. But this is not a long-term solution, because sending so much material from Earth would be very expensive. That is why scientists are working on a very clever idea called in situ resource utilization. This means building using the resources available on Mars itself. And what is the best option? It is to live under the surface of Mars. Yes, building underground habitats that will protect from radiation and also keep the temperature stable. Just going a few meters below the surface of Mars solves the radiation problem, because the soil absorbs the radiation. Plus, underground temperatures are also more stable. Now, there is another fascinating concept called construction using 3D printing. The idea is that we will send large 3D printers to Mars, and they will use Martian soil to print buildings. Mars soil contains iron and other minerals that can be used as construction material. Robots will go there first and do all this work, and when humans arrive, basic infrastructure will already be ready for them. Now, the most critical question comes up. Where will water come from on Mars? Look, without water, nothing is possible. We need water for drinking, water for farming, and also water to make oxygen, because oxygen can be extracted by doing electrolysis with water, and rocket fuel can also be made from water. Now, the good news is that Mars has water, and in large amounts. At Mars's poles, there are layers of ice that hold millions of cubic kilometers of water. Plus, there is also ice under the surface of Mars, a few meters below the ground. So basically, there is no shortage of water. We just need the technology to extract it. NASA and SpaceX are both working on water extraction. The plan is to drill into the ground and heat the ice to turn it into water. This water will then be purified and made ready for use. And once water is available, many problems get solved. Now, let's talk about food. There is no McDonald's on Mars, so where will food come from? In the beginning, packaged food will be sent from Earth, but this is not sustainable. That is why farming will have to be done on Mars. Now, Mars soil contains some chemicals that are toxic to plants, such as perchlorates, so farming cannot be done directly in Martian soil. But scientists have developed techniques like hydroponics and aeroponics, where soil is not needed at all. Plants are grown in nutrient-rich water in a controlled environment. Artificial sunlight is provided using LED lights, and temperature is kept under control. In this way, vegetables and fruits can also be grown on Mars. In fact, NASA has already successfully grown lettuce and other vegetables on the International Space Station, so this technology is proven and will also work on Mars. Imagine, inside a dome, green plants are growing, and outside there is a red desert. How surreal that scene would be. Now, let's talk about a very ambitious and long-term plan called terraforming. Terraforming means making a planet like Earth. That means thickening Mars's atmosphere, increasing the temperature, generating oxygen, and eventually creating an environment where humans can live without spacesuits. Now, this sounds like science fiction, but theoretically it is possible. It will just take a very long time, maybe hundreds or thousands of years. One idea is to blast nuclear bombs at Mars's poles, which would melt the ice and release water vapor and CO2 into the atmosphere. This would start a greenhouse effect, and Mars would begin to warm up. Now, another idea is to place giant mirrors in Mars's orbit that focus sunlight on the poles and melt the ice. Another approach is to set up factories that continuously produce greenhouse gases and make the atmosphere thicker. Basically, this will be a multi-generational project that will be completed by the great-grandchildren of our children. Now, talking about the practical timeline, SpaceX's plan is to land the first unmanned starship on Mars by 2026 or 2028. Then, in the 2030s, they plan to send the first humans, and by 2050, they want to establish a small colony where at least about 1,000 people can live. NASA's plan is a little more conservative, and they are planning their first manned mission in the late 2030s. China is also in the Mars race, and their plan is to send the first Chinese astronauts to Mars in 2033. Now, an interesting question is, who will go to Mars? Look, in the first missions, trained astronauts and scientists will go, who will perform specific experiments and construction work. But eventually, when the colony becomes bigger, normal civilians will also be able to go. Elon Musk has said that his goal is for the ticket to Mars to eventually cost about the same as an average house. That means if you can sell your house, you could go to Mars, and the people who go will also work there. Because to build a new world, you need all kinds of skills. You need engineers, doctors, farmers, and teachers. Even artists and musicians are needed, because human society also needs culture. Now imagine what daily life on Mars will be like. You wake up in your underground habitat. On a screen, you see the surface of Mars, but it is not actually a window, it is a camera feed, because to protect against radiation, there will be no windows. You will eat breakfast that may be made from vegetables grown on Mars. Then you will put on your spacesuit and go outside to work on a project. In the evening, you will meet people at a community centre and maybe watch a movie that was beamed from Earth. Communication with Earth will happen, but there will be a delay of about 3 to 22 minutes, depending on planetary positions. That means video calls will not be possible, but messages can be sent and received. Now, there are also some philosophical questions. Think about children who are born on Mars. These children will technically be Martians. They will have never seen Earth. For them, Mars will be home. And because Mars's gravity is 38% of Earth's gravity, these children will develop differently. Their bones and muscles will grow differently. And maybe after several generations, Martian humans will physically become different from Earth humans. This will be a new chapter in evolution. Another important point is governance. What laws will exist on Mars? Currently, on Earth, there is an international treaty called the Outer Space Treaty, which says that no country can claim sovereignty over any celestial body. That means Mars does not belong to any country. So when a colony is built there, whose rules will it follow? Will it be independent, or will it be under some Earth government? These questions are still unanswered, and probably the answers will come only after the first colony is built. Some people say that Mars is a chance for a fresh start, where we won't repeat humanity's mistakes and can build a better society. Now, if we talk about economics, Mars colonization is an extremely expensive project. Estimates vary, but settling the first 1 million people on Mars could cost somewhere between $100 billion and $1 trillion. That sounds like a huge amount, but if you look at it in context, the whole world spends even more than that on the military every single year. So the resources do exist, but priorities would need to change. And in the long term, Mars could even become profitable. Mars may have rare minerals that are limited on Earth. On top of that, mining asteroids from Mars would be easier because Mars is closer to the asteroid belt. And the biggest thing is that the technology developed for Mars missions would also be used on Earth. Just like the Apollo missions gave us many technologies that are now part of our daily lives, from water purification systems to computer chips, a lot of that came from space programs. Now let me give you a realistic picture of what could happen over the next 50 years. In the 2030s, the first humans will land on Mars. It will likely be a small team that stays there for a few months and then returns to Earth. In the 2040s, a proper permanent outpost could be established, where researchers live full-time. In the 2050s, an actual colony may be built, with around 100 people living there. In the 2060s and 2070s, the colony could expand, and thousands of people may start living on Mars. And by the end of the century, Mars might even have a full-fledged city with hundreds of thousands of people. This sounds ambitious, but remember this: in 1903, the Wright brothers flew the first airplane, and only 66 years later, in 1969, humans were standing on the moon. Human progress is exponential, not linear. Now, finally, I want to share a personal thought with you. Mars colonization is not just a scientific achievement, it represents the spirit of humanity. We are the species that left Africa and spread across the entire world. We crossed oceans, climbed mountains, and turned the impossible into reality. Going to Mars is simply the next step in that journey. Some people will say that we should solve Earth's problems first, and that is a valid point. But history shows that exploration and problem solving go hand in hand. You don't have to abandon one for the other. And the most important thing is that when you look at Mars in the night sky, which appears like a reddish dot, remember that in your lifetime, cities might be built on that dot, and people may start living there. We are in the generation that will witness this historic transition from Earth to a multi-planetary civilization. And just thinking about it gives me chills. How lucky we are to be born in this time. Even as I am making this video, SpaceX is preparing its next Starship test, and NASA is studying its Mars samples. All of this is happening in real time, and we are witnesses of this historic journey. So friends, this was the complete story of Mars colonization, a dream that a few decades ago was science fiction, and today is becoming reality. We are literally at that point where the future history will be written. And who knows, maybe one of you will be among those first Martians who make the red planet their home. Because impossible is only impossible until someone makes it possible. Stay curious, stay dreaming, and yes, if you ever go to Mars, don't forget to invite me. But wait, if you thought Mars was fascinating, then the next video is even more shocking, which is about the Kailasa Temple, a structure that even experts are confused about. Click on the video on your screen right now and see why even scientists can't explain about it.